All right, so this is kind of forward-looking and interesting. Bill Conley, who does a lot of the data stuff at ESPN, has Georgia with at least a 90% chance of winning every game they play in 2023, with the exception of the game at Tennessee. Now, excuse me, anybody with a brain or who's been to Knoxville knows that playing in Neyland Stadium is very challenging for sure. The two games that are closest to the game at Neyland for Bill and ESPN are the Ole Miss game in Athens and the South Carolina game in Athens. Both those are at Georgia having at least a 91% chance of winning, according to them. Now, some of the stuff like Football Power Index or whatever ESPN comes up with, that's like not based in reality in my mind. What Bill Conley does though with SP Plus rankings, I become more and more of a believer in it. I think he's essentially got it right. He can explain all of that. I'm not gonna go through explaining it. It's his product, it's his thing. But just off the gut, it is hard to see a lot of losses for Georgia along the way. I do think the game at Tennessee, which is game 11, is the most difficult for Georgia. First of all, it's at Tennessee. I mean, that's challenging. Secondly, Tennessee's pretty good, and that's going to be problematic. I do want to mention this real quick. If you like this shirt, excuse me, sweatshirt, our friends at Red Zone still have it available. They are ordering more. Make sure you pick that up down below. If you've not ordered Double Dogs yet, you're basically running in the last couple of days where you can order it and I'll have confetti remaining. I probably won't have confetti by Sunday. I know this is Friday that I'm recording this, so get it today. The book stands on its own. You don't have to have the confetti. I mean, it is the story behind the scenes of the 2022 season at Georgia, their second national championship in a row. There's stuff in here you're not going to read anybody anywhere else. I can assure you of that. There's also images you're not going to see anywhere else, including this one, frankly. So make sure you're picking it up today. The link is down below. I'm not going to run out of books. I will run out of confetti. So get that done today. When you look at Georgia's 23 schedule, the start of it is not complicated. And I've kicked around the notion that Georgia could play BYU in Atlanta. That's not going to happen. I mean, we're getting a little late in the year for that. I mean, we're already several weeks into 2023. I don't know if Georgia could uh, it just probably doesn't really make sense in a lot of ways. So I do think they'll start with UT Martin and Ball State, at least for now, unless something really strange happens. The South Carolina game will be built up as a big deal game. I'm just going to tell you that off the bat. I know how this goes. South Carolina had a pretty good close this season with their win over Tennessee and then Clemson. I mean, those are back to back. That's a pretty good close to the season for a program that's been lost in the wilderness for a while. If if South Carolina beats North Carolina in Charlotte, like they did a couple of years ago at the Mayo Bowl, then you're going to see them ranked. They're probably going to be ranked going into the season with the return of Spencer Rattler. They are not in Georgia's universe, but I can assure you that that game will be really it will begin the season in a big way for probably CBS. That would be my suspicion in their swan song of things. And then South Carolina, they got back to back with Tennessee and Florida. Then they go to Missouri, Texas A&M. This is a challenging schedule for South Carolina. Of course, they host Clemson. They got to play Kentucky the week before that. So we'll see how that goes. This is and the other thing I've talked about this a lot. I don't think this will change. I really don't. Not right now with Georgia playing Tennessee the week before. I do think it is not out of the realm of possibility in the future that Tech Georgia becomes a Friday excuse me. I was going to say Thursday. It's not going to be a Thursday game. It could become a Friday game, but we'll see. Now that Disney has total control over that game, that means that there's a lot that they can do in terms of scheduling, promotion, and so forth. Shifting the University of Georgia to a Friday prime time would be, or at least Friday afternoon, if you're going to go Gators and Knowles in prime time. I think that's something that just logically makes a lot of sense for Disney. They control Georgia Tech now from here on out into 15 years from now. So they will probably do more with Tech Georgia than just put it up against Ohio State, Michigan like they have in the past. Georgia Tech doesn't draw in any way, y'all. They don't matter. And that's problematic for them. Maybe they'll get better. I mean, it cannot get much worse than it's been under Jeff Collins. I mean, that was a train wreck. So now you have a guy there who's really trying to an alum who is trying to make things go. But when I look at this schedule, it's got the usual suspects, South Carolina, Auburn, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, the Gators. The game, thankfully, against Missouri is in Athens. And then that might be the last time that game is played. Georgia and Missouri. Let's not forget here that we are sprinting towards a 2024 or 2025, probably 2025 still, where Texas and Oklahoma are going to come in. That will destroy what we've always known of the SEC. That makes it sound like I'm against it. I'm not necessarily against it. I'm against going to Missouri for a meaningless game every other year. It's forced. It's a waste of some of our times. It would be much better spent playing traditional SEC schools. Um, and I just I don't have any use for the Georgia Missouri game in any way. So that's me. But Bill Conley has that game at Georgia with a 96% chance to win it in Athens. The interesting thing here is, what games does he have Georgia at 95% or higher? Okay. The UT Martin game at home, the Ball State game at home, the Alabama Birmingham game at home, the Auburn game on the road, okay, the Vanderbilt game on the road, the Missouri game at home, and then the game at Georgia Tech. So three of the games that Georgia plays next year, Auburn, Vanderbilt, and Georgia Tech on the road. Bill Conley feels like, or at least his formula has him at least a 95% chance to win that game. I will believe Georgia losing to, Ole Miss when I see it. Now, they could be better than I'm giving them credit for coming into the season, simply because of the quarterback situation there, but I just don't know. Um, I'll tell you this, though, speaking of Ole Miss, somebody on this schedule is going to give Georgia a hard time. Now, that's just what it is, y'all. In Dogstruction, we talked about this a lot. Obviously, Georgia lost a game in 2021. People forget that, and a lot of people are still ordering Dogstruction. But there was no one game. I mean, people anticipated the Clemson game to be tight. It was. It was tighter than it needed to be. The Auburn game was halfway close for a second or two. The Kentucky game, obviously, the Tennessee game was halfway close, and then the loss to Bama in the championship game. So there will be a game here that mimics Georgia Mizzou from a season ago. I don't know which game it will be. It could be Auburn. I would not be surprised at all if it's hard to play on the road in this league. And you got two very serious road games at Auburn and at Tennessee, and people are going to be like, oh, da, da, da. Look, those are legitimate places to play. They're very difficult to play. If Georgia were playing at South Carolina, I'd say something similar. Now, this year, I didn't say that a lot. I mean, Georgia was just so much better than Carolina that it was going to be hard to legitimately act like South Carolina was, in Georgia's universe at that moment. But, at Georgia Tech, that's going to be 80, 90% Georgia people. I mean, there's no game here. There are two games here where Georgia won't have at least 50% of the crowd. And those are the two games I feel like you got to kind of watch it at Auburn and at Tennessee. I think to some degree you have to watch Carolina, and to some degree you have to watch Ole Miss. Florida, Florida's a mess. Florida's a mess. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for what that program can be, that I don't know that you just shut it down and say Florida can't stay in there. But they are a mess right now, that's for sure. Hey, if you like the sweatshirt, pick it up. You're not going to see this design anywhere else. I've been assured of that. So pick it up from our friends at Red Zone down below. If you want confetti, you better order it today.